Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
And hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you're looking for a bank that's one of the top 10 in the United States, and that's not just my opinion, although it is my opinion, but it's not just my opinion. That's the opinion of folks that were surveyed by Forbes magazine. Yes, Forbes magazine, in a survey they did of banks nationwide, found that Renaissance is one of the top 10 in the country. And if you're looking for a bank that's big enough to handle pretty much any need you can throw at them, but small enough to do it in a personal way, that's what I've found at Renaissance Bank, and I think you will too. So go to renaissancebank.com, find one of their local offices, and give them a call. And I think you'll be glad you did. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. Now I want to welcome old friend Brock Kolls is with us, folks, back with us again, and he's with Gr8BigIdeas. Brock, welcome back.
John, great to see you.
Great, always great to see you. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this one. Let's give everyone that doesn't know you an introduction to what you're up to at Gr8BigIdeas.
Awesome. So like you said, my name is Brock Kolls. I've been in the tech community here in Atlanta for many years, focused on entrepreneurs and startups and really helping them with intellectual property. Mm-hmm. I had a startup of myself back in the late 90s. It sounds like a long time ago, but it doesn't really feel that way.
Right.
My kids remind me, they're like, what? Late 90s?
Yeah.
You know, what was that? Right. But it was very successful, and we raised a lot of money, and we put it on NASDAQ, but along the way, we had way more ideas than we had money. So it forced us to become smart with intellectual property, and that's what I got involved in. So I've been this hybrid engineer, patent agent for a number of years. Mm-hmm. After my startup, I went to Coca-Cola, and I did the same thing there in R&D. We worked on a number of big projects and whatnot. In 2015, I decided that I'd go to the tech community. This is where my roots were. And for the last 7 years, it's been awesome just helping entrepreneurs and startups protect their ideas and kind of unravel what they're working on and draft and prosecute patent applications for them.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and let's just tell people that one of those big ideas at Coke was one they see all the time now, right? The Freestyle Dispenser. When you first came on, it was not totally common, but now it's pretty common.
Yeah. So when I started, we were down in the basement. That was one of the first projects that I worked on down there. And the concept there was to take, 100 different boxes of ingredients and get them into a very small machine to make 100 different drinks. And that's what Freestyle became. It's the most awesome project that I was ever on. They had about 200 of the smartest people you could imagine from all of the great companies had come to Coke to work on that project. It had great sponsorship internally, which is super important there and everything. And you can see the result today. It really did change the industry in a dramatic way. And like I said, it was totally awesome to be part of that and to see that project come.
Yeah, absolutely. So you are working with companies on their patents. And when we say companies, we mean entrepreneurs that are sometimes solopreneurs or startups, what have you. What are the biggest issues that you see or problems that these entrepreneurs have when it comes to thinking about their patents and their intellectual property?
I would say I hear a number of heartbreak stories, right, where people got involved too fast with lawyers and ended up spending a lot of money on their patent before they really figured out what their product was. And then as their product develops over time, the realization that they're now sort of patenting something that they're not making sets in, and it's really hard for them to get that back. So I would say I tell people all the time that their patent budget should never be bigger than their project budget, and that kind of keeps them in check. So a lot of them, they understand a little about patents and have looked on the internet and that type of thing. A few maybe have tried them on their own, but most of the people that I meet are good at the idea portion of the design and really need help with the patent side of it. Mm-hmm. So I tell them I like to join the journey. I like to be bootstrapped with them on the patents, help them focus on conserving their resources on when their ideas are early, and then at the right time drafting and filing the right kind of patents for them to get the work done. So,
do you think that? I can certainly see how people would spend too much money with a lawyer real quickly, and there's some actually good reasons for that. Let's don't blame the lawyers for that, just for that, right? We can come back to that. But do people jump in too quickly, thinking they've got property that needs protection? Is that part of the problem? Just the fact that they're coming in too early thinking that way?
Yeah, I would say a couple things. One is, and this kind of caught me by surprise, but I've heard it a number of times now, and that is somebody has an idea maybe for a new app on a phone. Mm-hmm. They're not technical, so the first thing they have to do is go get 3 or 4 people to work on it with them. Time goes by, and suddenly now all these people think that they're the inventor on there, and the real inventor of the idea has been lost. So those people show up wanting to get some sort of protection to make sure that they, are recognized as being the original inventor. I'd say the other is they have an idea, and they get started on a product development cycle. And like what usually happens on all product development cycles, it gets refined along the way and changed, maybe designed for manufacturing, or they're going to have it made overseas in high volume, and that changes the design. But in that time period, it makes it look like a different product, right? That does the same thing and whatnot. So getting started too quick and kind of, spending all your budget on your first version, either emotionally or too early, right? Is the downfall. They have what's called a provisional patent, and it's very inexpensive, and it's a great way to start for early ideas. And most of the entrepreneurs that I work with, that's sort of the recommendation, right? Spend a little bit of money, protect your core idea. It lasts for a year, and so that's plenty of time typically to go through a product development cycle. You get a lot more visibility on your idea. See if you're still as excited about it in 6 months as you were on the day that you had it,
right.
That type of thing.
Well, and let's, maybe folks don't want me to let the lawyers off the hook, but I'm going to try at least on part of this. Lawyers aren't there to tell you, they're basically there to do what you tell them to do when it comes to pursuing a patent, right? I mean, they're not the experts on how you ought to pursue it, that kind of thing, right? I mean, they didn't go to law school to learn that.
So I tell people I'm an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
This is the lens I look through. And so this is my opinion. I have worked for some law firms, and so I understand the model. The business model is different. They're a by the hour model. And the people that work there need to accomplish a certain number of hours a year in order to fill that obligation, right?
Right.
Entrepreneurs, on the other hand, are a group of people that like to work as long as it takes to get a solution done, right? And so already there's a little bit of a rub between, somebody who wants you to spend a lot of time helping you think through the situation and somebody else who just sort of wants to, bill for the next hour because that's their metric on there. And so I think the other hand too, like you mentioned, they like to receive disclosure and then from a time period to maximize the time they're giving people, just write about it. Whereas, like you say, a lot of times with the entrepreneurs, they sort of have breadcrumbs and napkins that they start with, and they're great ideas, but they take a little time to sort of mature the thinking around them and everything. So what I do is always low cost, fixed fee, and that I think the way people budget. They can plan for an event, they can budget for the event, they can execute that type of thing, and so by not counting hours and not counting time, it allows me to spend as much time as it takes to do the job right with them. And I think that's what makes the difference when it comes to a good quality application early on. I don't know if that model can be replicated, for other people, but where I am in my journey with my career, there's a portion of it, just like yourself. It's a give back on there and everything. And so I really enjoy helping other people have that entrepreneurial experience like I've had it.
Now, you mentioned the problem that entrepreneurs have when it comes to maybe overspending on the legal side. Does it work the other way? I mean, have you seen worked with entrepreneurs that they're really late to getting their intellectual property protected?
Yeah. So, you can be late. There are some drop dead dates, particularly around when people begin to offer their products for sale and that type of stuff, on there. I tell people that a provisional is a great way to start for an early idea. When you get to final design drawings, it's a great chance to look to see if you can protect the design. One protects how it works, the other protects how it looks. And then when you really get to that 1 year expiration date on your provisional, then it's time to make the decision, right? Whether you want to invest in a more expensive utility application, which is the kind of patents we see, right? That issue on there and everything. But by then, they're usually down the road. They have great visibility as to what their design is. They have either delivery or they have a window of when they're going to be commercializing it or that type of thing. And so it begins to make sense to spend a little bit more time and a little bit more money on intellectual property because it begins to count more, right? It's an idea that's really going to be commercialized. So I would say the not having a conversation about intellectual property early on is probably the pitfall, because a lot of people that might wait, they sort of get themselves out of that sequence, and then it either does cost them a lot more, or they end up giving up, some sort of opportunity. There are some hiccups, that you can run into, particularly around maybe believing a confidentiality agreement is a replacement for a patent, right? But we live in a first to file world, and so somebody else can have that idea and be the first to file, and then it's a mess, right?
Right. Yeah, well, I'm laughing about confidentiality agreements because we know what those sometimes mean, right? Nothing. But let's get back to that example you mentioned about the person who has the idea for an app, hires developers, and then all of a sudden it gets a little screwy as to who's...
It's a mess.
Yeah. Can that be solved with a simple contract?
It might be. Yeah, it might be. Now, how good are entrepreneurs early on good at contracts, right?
Well, there you go. There you go.
I'm just saying it's that resolution gets lost early on in those examples. And there are others, right? Where, like you say, even when you work with a product developer or you work overseas, right? To get those things done, all of those are kind of loose threads, right? You don't necessarily know what's going to happen in those relationships in there. And like I say, when, the solution might be to put together a provisional application that's a couple $100, and then you really don't have to worry about that. You've documented, that it's your idea and you're the inventor and that type of thing. It's a great way to start. And then, like I say, the contract thing is all bonus, right, on there. And it protects other things, but like I say, it's difficult to go back and kind of get to that first, that first filing type of thing on there. And it's good. And there's lots of reasons. I've recently worked with a group that was wanting to do contracts, grants. And so a lot of times if you do your patents first, then they belong to you. But if you get your grant money and then you do some patenting, you have to sort of give rights to the people who have given you the grant money, right? Particularly with the Small Business Association and any sort of government type thing. And so there's lots of reasons to take that first step and to begin to protect your idea. If you're just not sure, right? Because you don't know what the next stone, can't really see around the next corner on there. And then, like you say, when they show up and it's downstream, it's rough. The other is people who have ideas and they're employed and they're wanting to work on the side or moonlighting, right? And they have an employer, essentially an employment agreement, right? That's on there. That's another really mess, right? To work through. So it's that's why I love it. Everyone's different.
Yeah, Brock and I were laughing before we started this show about the reason folks don't want to come back to work. See, all these corporate chieftains think it's because nobody wants to work. These folks are actually at home working on other ideas at other companies, right? That's what they're doing.
Yeah, they're zooming from 9 to 10, and then they're working on their side gig from noon to 4.
That's right. So wake up out there, corporate America. I'm sitting here chatting with Brock Kolls, and his company is Great Big Ideas. He's the owner, and he's a patent agent with Great Big Ideas. So, Brock, I want a question about the tech community, and then let's go non-tech for a second. First, the tech community. Give your assessment of the North Fulton tech community and the state of ideas, I guess, as it were, in the north in our area here.
I think it's great. I won't tell you anything you don't already know. No, I think it's really great, and we've got a really dynamic group. It's very large if you think about it, going all the way from Atlanta and Georgia Tech and all of the incubators around here, all the way out to the suburbs here. Just around the corner here with the incubator by the fire station in Alpharetta. It's really great, and there's good quality people, and there's a lot of people that have been in the tech community a very long time, like yourself, right? That have been like the continuity that's been there. And so I've recently gone over and done the Friday morning Entrepreneurs Round Circle over at the Innovation Lab here in Alpharetta, the ATDC circle,
right,
and whatnot. And every single time I go over there, I bump into somebody that I haven't seen in a while, and it's like a comfortable shoe, right? You can sort of pick up the conversation and go. And so I think the community is really awesome. And it's a lot of fun to work with, and it's very dynamic, and it's constantly changing, and it's growing. And there's been tremendous support, I think, from as long as I've been in it, to see it advance and to see it continue and that type of thing. It's just really good. It makes it easy, where a lot of cities, I think, would be very difficult for an entrepreneur. Like, for instance, when I graduated in the University of Tennessee, out in Chattanooga, there wasn't a tech community out there. And if I wanted to do something entrepreneurial, I was faced with having to leave the city. And that's exactly what I did. And unfortunately, I think that happens for a lot of cities, right? They breed this talent, they make it smart, and then they let it exit to go benefit someplace else. But I think here in North Fulton, there's so many resources and so many businesses that people can find a place to come and connect and be part of and everything, that I think a lot of that talent stays around here. And I think it's important because, it just keeps things moving, right?
Yeah.
It really keeps things moving.
It feeds on itself, right? Yeah, absolutely. So the non-tech community question is what this work you're doing opens you up to is, and we were talking about before we came on the air, the mompreneurs, right? Yeah. I mean, the folks that are at home that are working on non-tech ideas, products, you might call them gadgets or whatever, but right, that are physical products that need some sort of intellectual property protection.
I think the thing that I've learned about people, which is awesome, and I sort of discovered these entrepreneurs are my people, right? And it's not, I knew it all along, right? Inside, but hearing other people's stories gives you that confirmation. I say that entrepreneurship has no age limit. I have met people that have covered the entire spectrum. Now, a lot of people have some sort of personal connection to their idea, right? It's either maybe they had a medical problem themselves, or they've had somebody in their family, something that gave them that spark that they needed to do something better. We were talking about the mompreneurs, right? Moms with young kids and the new gadgets they need for their kids, and then being convinced that those gadgets would benefit other moms. I think is a common thread out there that I see. And it's happened in the restaurant business with people who own restaurants and then come back with new gadgets for restaurants and that type of thing. And it's a lot of fun, to work with them and to see that journey and the risks that they take, to work on their own ideas instead of settling for the safety of just, working in whatever the environment that they're in is great. We were talking about budgeting. It's very dynamic. If you're a mom in a young family and you have an idea, now you're trying to balance family and you're trying to balance kid and you're trying to balance your family budget and you're trying to do some sort of product development on there. I mean, it's really, fun to watch and to be part of, to see how the different things work out. I've got one gentleman that I've worked with for a very long time on a medical product, and he's very close to licensing it. And he has been at it for several years in order to do, right? And it's just so much fun to see that journey, all the conversations we've had, and you've had to make hard decisions about what to patent and what not to patent and everything else on there. And to see it so close to fruition, right? It's so exciting to be part of it.
That's awesome. And and some of your work at Coke, it just occurs to me, has more in common with those folks, right, than the tech side. I mean, because really, like the Freestyle Dispenser, right? I mean, I guess you wouldn't call those, you would call that more of a product in a lot of ways, right?
It's both, right?
Yeah.
It's both. I mean, from the technical side of it, it's the most complicated piece of equipment I've ever worked on.
Yeah, of course.
They went from, putting ounces of concentrate into ounces of water to putting eyedroppers full of concentrate into ounces of water. It just, the complexity is phenomenal. And the new problems that came up by doing that and then were ultimately solved is genius, right? By a whole bunch of smart people to do it and to be part of it and to get the right patents for them at the same time be great. Then on the other side is the marketing people, right? Who are just faced with, the person who stands in front of the machine and what sort of experience do they have. Maybe that fits more into the non-tech side of it, right?
That's right.
Ultimately, it's about just getting ice in your cup and then making your selection and that type of thing, or interacting with your phone and that type of thing. But it goes both ways on there, and there's definitely a lot of perspectives to look at on those big innovations.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get a little more granular about. You mentioned several types of patents. You mentioned a provisional patent, which that may be news to folks. I mean, because they may think that you either patent something or you don't, right? Yeah. But what are the different types beyond provisional that you just defined earlier? What are the different types?
So I would say there's two categories, right? You can protect how something works and you can protect how something looks.
Okay.
In there. So within protecting how something works, there's two options. One option is a provisional application. Mm-hmm. It's very low cost. It's an advanced version of putting your idea in an envelope and mailing it to yourself, right? Way back when, right? People thought that was the way to do it, but it's not that, right? You file it. We do full applications and file them. You get filing dates. You get a patent pending status. It expires in 12 months, though. So what it's doing is it's buying you time, and its low cost nature allows you to let it go. Mm-hmm. If you have a different idea or your idea changes or that type of thing with low loss, right? On there. Sometimes people will do one or two of those on a product development cycle, just depending upon what happens. Within 12 months, if your idea is good, then people do a non-provisional application. And these are the ones that you, most of the time you see when you look up patents and that type of thing. Mm-hmm. They cost more because they take a lot of time to put together, and they get examined, and they ultimately mature into patents. And there is a way of connecting your non-provisional to your provisional so that you benefit from the filing date. So there's no time lost, and there's a nice bridge there. Typically, you try to do those non-provisionals when you get further down your product development cycle, and you can really begin to see your product, and you're going to commercialize it, and you can justify spending the extra time and money, to do it. So that's on the how it works. Kind of in the middle of the product development cycle is the design patent on how it looks, right? And those are typically done with drawings. And a lot of the products that get done all have 3D CAD drawings on there. And so when you get to a final design, kind of in the middle of your product development cycle, it's a great opportunity to take a look and to see if you can protect the way something looks. Contours of a plate. I've done wristbands and watches. I've done headphones. I've done all sorts of interesting designs on there because, with computers, it's so easy to do those 3D designs. The nice thing about it is you can take that CAD file and you can convert that into patent drawings and file there. So that's sort of kind of in the middle of the process. And from a cost perspective, the provisionals are the lowest, the design's kind of in the middle, and then the non-provisionals are the most on there. I do on my website keep a bootstrap patenting guide that people can get, and I sort of break down those different types of patents and what they go for, how much they cost, and when's the right time to think about filing them, everything. So when people call me, I've just collected ideas in there, and it shows them how to search and gives them a little bit about what the contents are in a patent, and gives them a little cheat sheet in the back of it has some sort of a list of the common ways that the patents are rejected, and some of the laws and some of the rules and stuff like that, just so they can get informed.
Yeah, that's a real valuable resource, folks, and we'll remind folks here about this in a second, Brock, but just if you need to know it right now, it's Gr8BigIdeas.com. You'll find it there, Gr8BigIdeas.com, Gr8BigIdeas.com. So you alluded to this a little earlier, but talk about how you help an entrepreneur budget, not just money, but the time spent on this? Because that's a resource too that needs to be conserved.
So I tell people that I'm available all the time for calls to talk about it. I think that's the number one thing. They can call me anytime, text me, send an email, whatever it is, because a lot of times those are late night worries that they have or concerns that they have, and we can talk about them right away. Not all like late night, but you know what I mean.
Oh, absolutely.
When you feel like you need an answer, which is good. And
or if they're working from 8 to 5, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And I tell them that they can consider me to be part of their development team, right? So that if they're representing themselves to investors or they're representing themselves to other people, I'm more than happy to fill that spot on the bench to talk about IP and to play that role and everything. It's not something I charge for. It's just something I do because I think that's the right thing to do to sort of help build a foundation around that. And like I say, usually intellectual property takes quite a bit of time. It evolves over time and that type of thing. And so I start out there, and then my wife forces me to charge for applications, and I had to be just totally upfront about that. She said, "Hey, look, if this is going to be a hobby, then So, but I have whittled it down to the lowest cost in each of those categories. And it can't be done cheaper and it can't be done better because I take as much time as it takes to get those applications done. And I treat those applications like they're my own. Like I was my own idea, working on my own idea. You know how when you work on your own stuff, you really feel like you have a level of commitment to it, that's there. And it's not to say that a by-the-hour lawyer doesn't do the same thing. I'm just saying the model is different over there on there. And part of it is like where I mentioned before, it's just where I am in my personal journey, right? I've done those things myself, and now I enjoy helping others that are there. That's part of it. And so it works out really good. I'll have to say, I love seeing the entrepreneurs online and having engaging conversations in other ways without me, but then saying something that I've talked to them about, right? Sort of passing along some sort of insight or some sort of nugget on there and everything. So you feel like, hey, that's great. Now here's a person that really understands how this fits in their cycle, and they've done a good job and they've protected their idea. Now they're helping others kind of cultivate and do the same type of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Brock, I would love it if you don't have to mention names, of course, but I would love it as we close out the show if you could maybe share a success story, a particular situation that you feel like your work has been impactful, particularly impactful.
So I'll go through some of the categories that I've worked on, which are really interesting. I told you the medical thing to me is fascinating because it's a gentleman that I've met, I've got to know. He had a personal medical condition, and he translated that into a product that solved the problem. And then he has doggedly, for years, worked to get that product licensed. And I worked with him to do patent applications. He had started out in the by-the-hour world, and it didn't go so well. But he retrenched, and we worked on his ideas and the way they turned out, final form, and it's awesome. And so fingers crossed every day. It's a prayer. I just want him to close the deal because for an entrepreneur, that's the home run, right? Is to get to the thing. But I've worked in the restaurant business. I've worked in the construction business. I'm right now, the applications I'm working on are adjustable furniture on there. So it goes on and on. I've worked on devices for paralyzed people who have had strokes just recently. Travel suitcase type of things. It just, every single one of them though has a common thread and a linkage to the entrepreneur or the company that's doing it, right? They have a personal journey tied into whatever it is that they've done. They've seen something and they've analyzed the problem and then they're ready to go, right? This idea is better than maybe some of the other ideas they've had. It's gotten to the point where they're ready to spend time and effort to try to get it developed. So It's awesome. I've done lanterns. I've done, you name it. It pops up just one after another. I've done things for mobile phones. I've done applications on phones. I've worked with this really great artificial intelligence company that I met at Coke, the entrepreneurs I met at Coke many, many years ago that are over in Australia. And so it's just been fun, right? Just each one's a little bit different, little kind of challenge, kind of test your own skills on there. And it's great. I've worked with a number of my corporate friends who have retired out of corporate with their ideas and then have pursued their ideas on their own, on there, right? And so, after maybe many, many years in the matrix trying to get those ideas done that they couldn't do, now they're on their own and they continue to work on their ideas. And so it just really is neat to see all ages, all different kinds of people, all different backgrounds, just working on their stuff.
Wow. What great work from Brock Kolls, folks. Great Big Ideas, Gr8BigIdeas.com. Brock, this has been great. As usual, you're ringing the bell. And thanks for all the great work you do. We appreciate you and the leadership you show in this community. Before we let you go, though, for those that have heard something that makes them want to be in touch, let's tell them how they can find you.
Great. You can find me on my website, Gr8BigIdeas.com, GR and the number 8, BigIdeas.com. If you wanted to send me an email, you can send it to Brock at Gr8BigIdeas.com, or you can find me on LinkedIn. You can do a search and find me. Comes up as H. Brock Kolls on LinkedIn. But those are really the only different ways that I monitor communications, if you will, that are there. But I'd love to work on your ideas with you, help you patent it. I didn't mention it, but I do work with a colleague that came out of Coke for trademarks. And so he does trademark registrations, and he does them the same way that I do with patents in a bootstrap fashion, everything. We've done quite a few of them. He's a really great guy and likes to listen and try to understand what the entrepreneurs are doing and help them do trademark registrations, which is another form of intellectual property that's important to them to do. So,
yeah, absolutely. Terrific. Brock Kolls, folks. Great Big Ideas. Brock, thank you again for coming on.
Great. Thanks, John, for having me.
Absolutely. Hey, folks, just a quick reminder. If you are looking for a better team building experience for your corporate team, for your group, you want something that does not involve the potential of broken ankles, I've got an idea that involves heading on over to A&S Culinary Concepts. They're an award-winning culinary studio in the Johns Creek area. And yes, they do, as you might imagine, corporate catering. They've got other private group events that they do, but they also do corporate team building. And just imagine your team standing around a stainless steel table and enjoying each other and seasoning meat and cutting up vegetables and then cooking together and eating what you cook. It's a lot of fun. So call Executive Chef Andrew Traub at 678-336-9196 or go to asculinaryconcepts.com for more information. I think you'll be glad you did. And folks, North Fulton Business Radio is on all the major podcast apps. You can find the show by searching North Fulton Business Radio using that search term. And we're coming up on show number 500, so we're pretty excited about that. Excited about that milestone, and we're going to celebrate big on that. So we couldn't have gotten here without your support, so thank you for your support. And if you haven't subscribed to the show, we'd be honored if you would do that. We'd be most appreciative, though, if you would share the show. We're here to celebrate entrepreneurs, business leaders, and the great work that they do, men and women, entrepreneurs like Brock, who have done great work, and you help us by helping them because we're interested in helping them. So if you could help them, we would be greatly appreciative of that work by sharing the show. So for my guest, Brock Kolls, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.